Hi, everybody. I'm smiling out of nerves. I I struggled to show up today. I I haven't even um I have not even gotten out of my gym clothes. It's been a very emotional day, and I'm here because I made a commitment to be here. I'm not gonna cry, but I'm like right at the edge of tears. And I'm not gonna get into exactly why I'm feeling this way because it's not my story to tell. But I am so angry. I don't like when people that I love are being taken advantage of. And there's nothing, very little, if nothing, that I can do about it. It fucking sucks. I a lot of it has to do with the fact that so ever since I was a child, especially with my mom, like I was positioned in my family as the person who took care of everybody. And you get older and you realize that's not possible. And even when you try, a lot of times, learning to have boundaries, you realize that even in certain situations where you think you can, it may not be the wisest thing to do because you have to acknowledge your own needs um and I'm not talking about like inconveniences, but to like sacrifice at the extent that it's going to harm me. I don't do that anymore. I spent a lifetime doing that. um but it definitely brought up something as much as I struggled to show up today. um to ask y'all, what in what ways was expressing anger displayed to you as a child? How was it modeled? What are, like, what do you remember? And, feel free to put your comments. Like, what do you remember about how anger was expressed in your household? Whether it was by your parents, by siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whoever you live with. How was that modeled for you? For myself, um, I rarely remember seeing my mom angry. Not in a like healthy way or unhealthy way. Like I don't remember that. My grandfather though was a yeller. He had a lot of rage, and he was physically abusive to my sister and little brother and cousins, in the sense that he wholeheartedly believed in corporal punishment. He was a carpenter and actually had a paddle that he called the Board of Education, and he used it willingly. Um, and my grandmother, very seldomly did I ever see her angry. Why do I say that? Um, Levon Shaw, the erogenous coach, says they could be angry, the adult, but I could not respond in the same manner. Whew. Yeah. Like they were allowed to have emotions, but a lot of us as children, if you did see anger display, like with my grandfather, absolutely. Like there was no one that was going to tell him. Although my grandmother oftentimes did put herself in between my cousins and my siblings and trying to calm my grandfather down. And remember as a kid, like she like I say our last name is I'd say, and she would always call him by that. I'd say no, and she's like 4'6", little chocolate woman. And Levon says my mother hit with her words of correction. Mm. And that takes me to that saying as kids. Oh, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words may never hurt me. That ain't true. That ain't true. Because sticks and stones cause bruises that you see, but those words, they can stick with you for a lifetime. For a lifetime. That we are the healing from the things that people have said to us in anger and pain and frustration and whatever, thinking they were funny when we were kids, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. And until we do that work to undo that, to tell ourselves something different, many of us, the voice that we hear, especially that voice that is criticizing and angry or mean to us, is not our own voice. It's often that person, that parent. And if you're not aware, next time that happens, sit there and be like, oh, that sounds like, because then you know where the foundation of that is. I did not have healthy, or I did not see women getting angry, not in an unhealthy way or healthy way. And so when I came up, like anytime I felt angry and I would like literally my blood, it felt like my entire body was hot. It was such an uncomfortable feeling. It still is. I'm working through allowing myself to be angry and feel angry. Because I did not have that experience to see what that was like. And so today, when I'm dealing with the circumstance, the situation that happened, I feel myself getting hot. And my coping mechanisms is either I want to have sex, I want to eat pizza and Cinnabon, or I need to go hit something or go to the gym. Like all three, maybe one after another. And coping isn't bad, especially if that's what you absolutely need to do. But when you're choosing to cope, hopefully you have enough emotional maturity that you're able to choose the one that is the healthiest for you in this circumstance. Sex ain't it. Because people that I'm calling, we're not opening that door. And I'm on a fitness journey. I'm on a health journey. I got a carnival costume that I'm trying to fit it, that I'm going to wear. It's already ordered, that I'm wearing on July 8th. And so binging on cinnamon rolls and pizza ain't it. And I already went to the gym this morning, and I'm going to the gym tomorrow. And so that is not, it could be an option, but it isn't, because overworking yourself can cause injury. And so when those three things are the things that are coming up for me to cope with my anger, because I feel helpless and hopeless in this situation, what do you do? Hey, Donetta, what do you do when the things that you want to do to cope with your anger or whatever the emotion is that's coming up for you are not options. Most times you are going to, if you're not intentional, you are going to result into doing the thing that was modeled for you. Oftentimes that may, as Levon mentioned, people lash out with their words. This is when you see people that you're walking down the street and anybody could do anything or nothing at all, and they ready to go because they're carrying so much anger in them that their trigger is so small that it can just take the semblance of someone disrespecting them that they go off. When we see these people fighting and killing and this and the other, it's like that's the extreme of just people not being able to manage and not having had to manage their emotions in a healthy way. Because ultimately, we just don't want to feel it. And so we tend to, the word I'm looking for, project. We tend to project it onto other people. And the people who get it the worst is either the person that's there in the moment or the people who are closest to us. And for most, that if you live, like I live alone, so ain't nobody here for me to go off on. But you have family, you have kids, spouse, partner, whatever. And it makes me think of a tweet that I saw earlier today that was like, imagine we are children who are traumatized by parents who were traumatized by their parents, who were traumatized by their parents, and so on and so forth, until someone decides this is it. In religious church community, even in just the Black churchy community, we talk about generational curses and we pray and we go up this, that, and the other, and prayer's good. But those generational curses are going to stop when someone in the lineage decides it ends with me. And how do those, and I don't even like calling them generational curses anymore, the generational trauma. Because we get into positions of authority, and until we intentionally heal, even if, let me tell you, you can know and be like, I'm not going to be nothing like my mama. I'm not going to be nothing like my daddy. But if you're not doing something intentionally to heal so you don't turn into them, you either going to wake up one day and be like, damn it, when did I turn into Chrysal? That's my mother's name. I've had that moment, and I don't have kids, that I had to realize I am more like her than I ever wanted to be in ways that I never wanted to be. Saying it, despising her, despising the trauma, didn't do anything. Because there are psychologists that say those from age 1 to 5, maybe 6, those experiences, the things that are said and done to and around us, it's like being hypnotized. That our psyche is just in taking all this information and it's creating a personality, and through those experiences, whether we want them or not, because we're children and we are at the mercy of the adults in our life. And so imagine, from the most craziest situation to, maybe seemingly the 2-parent household living in the suburbs. I asked an ex of mine, I wonder what it would have been like to be raised by my parents in the same house. And he was like, being that he's a product of a mother and father who were married the entire time he was from birth till adulthood, and they lived in a house, two-parent household, both worked in a nice neighborhood. He's like, based on my experience, don't think that your life would have been better, because having a two-parent household doesn't guarantee that it's going to be better. And it's easy to think that what you're missing, what someone else has that you are lacking, is going to make the difference. And it could, if those parents were actually being intentional about loving and being caring, and healing from their trauma. Which is also why I understand why parents of adult children can struggle with the cognitive dissonance, and can struggle with feeling like it's not fair that us as adult children or young adult children are coming at them about our experiences, because they were victimized in the same way that we're being victimized. So what do you do with that? Well, you can have empathy for someone and have empathy for your parents, and still be honest about the trauma and the pain that you endured because of your parents. We don't have to choose one or the other. That idea of living in a binary world, right, wrong, black, white, light, dark, either or, no, this or that, that is not reality. And no one should force you to choose one or the other. You don't have to choose. It can be, and often is, both and. I can love my mom. I do love my mom, and still be honest about the fact that her unhealed trauma caused me trauma, and empathize with the fact that she's had her own experiences. None of those things cancel out the other. Just like us as adults, many of my peers, 30, 40, 50, have kids, and yet we may or may not be healing. And even in being intentional about our healing, that doesn't mean that you'll be the perfect parent, and that your child or children won't grow up and one day be having this same conversation with you. But hopefully, if you're intentional about your healing, your response to them will be better than your parents' response will be to you. That you, instead of the defensiveness that a lot of our parents have, hey Tiffany, yeah, you caught me. Instead of the defensiveness that a lot of our parents usually have, that if and when your child comes to you and says, hey, I know you love me, I know you did the best you could, but when you did this is how it impacted me. I know you were stressed, but when you would say this to me in this way, it did not make me feel supported and loved. That hopefully, prayerfully, you will choose today as the day that you can start healing. And instead of prioritizing your feelings in that moment when your child or children come to you and say that, you can hear them, validate their experience, apologize, and then ask them, what can I do now that will show you in the way that you need that I love you and I support you and that I am sorry. And just like I hope that one day you can do that for your children, if your parent can't or won't do that for you, you can now reparent yourself and say, I didn't deserve that. My experience is valid. And what do I need to feel loved and supported? And then give that to yourself. Or you have community, and you can say, to your spouse, your friend, maybe you have an aunt, an uncle, a mentor and say, I'm struggling in this area, and I'm realizing that I didn't get an affirmation from my mother, and it's causing this gap in my life, and I'm reparenting myself. So, you're someone who I trust. Can you work with me on affirming myself to start to love myself in the way that I was not loved when I was a child? Because I don't want to continue this pattern that I'm constantly seeking other people's validation because I didn't get it from the people who were supposed to teach me how to validate and affirm myself. And so I'm constantly going to other people to get what my parents didn't and or couldn't give me. And I'm going to people because people who are traumatized, they tend to have a sixth sense for those who are vulnerable, because we tend to lack boundaries, and they can get away with stuff and be like, oh, well, she ain't got good boundaries, so I can just tell her she's pretty and I like her and I want a future with her and just say all these nice things. And when I disrespect her, yeah, she might yell. Oh, well, she ain't going nowhere. It'll be less acceptable. It'll be so much easier to be like, oh, no, that ain't it. When you can find healthy ways, because it's not wrong to need validation. It's not wrong to need affirmation. But when your foundation is cracked, it's like you trying to build a house with straw. So life is gonna life. Things are gonna happen. And when the littlest thing, the biggest thing, the it feels like whatever it is, it could feel like a hurricane because your foundation is unstable. And so anything comes. And so when you might get that little shiny glimmer, you don't know if it's gold or not, but it's shiny. You want and you need that salve that you think they're going to give you, you'll take it. Because again, your foundation is unstable. And so we got to go back. I don't care how old you are. It don't matter. We can go back to the beginning and nurture LuzCelenia. That today I get to tell myself it is okay to be angry and hold myself in this moment. Instead of turning to something that is unhealthy, that would harm me, even if it might feel good in the moment, but the consequence of turning to that would be harmful. I don't need to do that because I've been able to do the work to be able to show up for myself in healthy ways, that I can just be present with that feeling and not try, because a lot of times we're coping, which again is not bad in its essence, but a lot of times we are turning to those things because we just don't want to feel. And always running from your feelings is dangerous, because you are liable to run to something that is going to cause you serious harm. And God, in God's infinite wisdom, gave us a system to heal ourselves in that way. But the only way to get through it, only way to really get it is to go through it. We got to stop avoiding. I know that's what we saw. Every time your parent got angry, that's what they were doing. They're yelling at you and you're like, "What did I do? I just walked in the door." They were making you responsible for their emotions because they lacked the emotional maturity to just feel the discomfort of whatever the emotion was, process it in a healthy way, understand what is happening, and make decisions from a mature place. Many of our parents, Many of us as parents are really just not as mature as we should be, even though we grown. So I am going to get off my soapbox and I'm going to go tend to myself now. And I will see you here tomorrow, live at 5, with me, LuzCelenia, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the places. So I love you. Be as radiant as the sun.